Hello boys, on to STEM 39, which is what are the planning considerations for improving performance. In this STEM we're going to look at the following: performance and fitness needs of the individual and the team, the schedule of events and competitions, and how the climate and season can affect the performance of the athlete or team. We're also going to look at the specific considerations for planning for competitions and events. We'll also examine how the differences of whether or not you're an elite athlete or a recreational athlete will have an impact upon these considerations. In terms of what needs to be considered and how these considerations need to take place, it'll be a range of things. Obviously, we're looking at the fitness and the performance needs of the athlete in their particular sport. We're also looking at the competition and schedule of when things take place over the year or over the 4-year cycle, if it would be an athlete who's participating in the Olympic Games. It might also look at the climate and the season. So how does that impact upon the planning and what the athlete is asked to do by the coach or the trainer? Also in this area, you're going to look at things like how did the team perform last year? What are the details of the athletes? How do these what are the age of the athletes? What are their goals and what do they want to achieve? Those are some of the things that are going to play a role in what considerations need to be taken place. The fitness and performance needs of the athlete, whether they be an athlete who's competing at the beginner level or at the elite level. These, both the skills and the fitness levels, need to be considered, and they need to take a big part of what happens in the training sessions. Whether the coach is planning for an individual's training session or an overall year, then these things need to be looked at. You'll look at it in terms of what are the needs of the sport and what are the needs of the athlete in terms of their position. They may vary in what they're asked to do and prepare physically and mentally for what they're going to carry out in the sport. In terms of the fitness and the skills, they both relate to each other. Skills will be obviously the things that you need to carry out in the sport to be able to participate and succeed in the sport. Just as important, though, is the fitness. Although the fitness for the elite athlete will be more marked than it would be for the beginner or the amateur. When structuring a training session, the coach or the trainer, depending on who's running the session, there needs to be some things that need to be considered, and these are non-negotiables. Firstly is the safety. The safety might be in terms of the activities that the players are going to be doing and when they're going to be doing them. You also look at the environment and the equipment. Those might be some things that need to be considered in terms of safety for the planning of the training session. The training session needs to be relevant to what is going to be carried out in the sport. They also need to be relevant in terms of the position or the type of event that's being participated in by the athlete. There needs to be a balance between the skills and the fitness. We can't have one of those areas dominating the other. There may be times in the training year in which fitness plays a bigger role than skills. But overall, and looking at how you plan out a training year, there needs to be a balance between those two as well. In terms of the allowance for athletes to practice and to implement the skills and to try and develop those and improve, that needs to be also factored into the planning. If you expect that a player is going to improve over the course of a year, then you need to provide opportunities for them to improve in your training sessions. Then hopefully this will transfer into the game situation or into the competition situation for the athlete. Athletes also like some structure and some routines, so that needs to be something that you consider. It might be in terms of the weekly program, or it might even look at the daily program of what happens in a training session, so that the players are familiar with what's going to be asked of them to carry out. Having said that, variety is also something that athletes like to do or like to experience throughout the training year, so you would need to balance that in as well. When structuring training sessions, the coach needs to plan a number of different areas, so not just the physical fitness. So most of the coaches will be confident and see that as an important area. But there are also technical skills that need to be carried out, and we've been talking about the skills. Similarly to that is the psychological and the mental opportunities for players and teams and athletes to develop. In terms of the tactics, that might be what you're going to do against the opposition this week. It might be how you're going to outline the plan for your race. So the number of those things need to be considered and incorporated into the training sessions. Players also need to have opportunity to recover. There may be times during the year when there's more asked of them. There may be aspects of being asked to train twice a day for elite athletes. So those need to be considered, and with that, opportunity for the players or the athletes to recover. Planning for the competitions, the coach has a responsibility to ensure that he knows or she knows when the major aspects of the competition will take place. We're all familiar with our winter sports, in which teams will build up to the semi-finals and the final series, but also consideration would need to be taken under when representative programs are carried out. For other athletes, it might be things to consider like the Olympic Games, when the major competition happens only once every 4 years. But in having said that, there would be World Cups and World Championships that also take place for the players or the athletes to prepare themselves for. In this particular slide, we can see a couple of different models that are used by some of our major sports. We can see that this top one here outlines the training week or a schedule for a particular team of professional soccer players. We can see that match day happens down here, and there's variations that happen for each of the different methods about when the rest time occurs pre-match, when the skills are taking place. You can see some variation there. You can also see variation in the types of recovery. So different teams will use different methods. These are good examples for you to be familiar with. You can see that most teams will have some similarities, but there'll also be some variations about what the thoughts are for recovery and preparation, or recovery and then preparation for the next event. Planning for the schedule of events or competitions, again, an awareness of when things are taking place, the different phases of the competition. As we've mentioned before, the finals and the pre-season, and things like the grand final. Those things need to be considered in the planning. The annual plan should also have some consideration of making everybody aware of these different events, so that there are considerations for the athletes and their ability to not only physically prepare but to also mentally prepare. In this slide we can see an example of a plan carried out for a swimmer or a swimming team. You can see here that the events have been listed down here. We've got some school tiles and state tiles. We go to the long course, which is a 50-metre pool. In May and July we've got a rest period, or a time when things are a little bit, there's not as much going on for the swimming fraternity here. We then go into the short course, which is a different set of skills that would be required for the athlete, and then again a rest period here. The phases of the year have been planned out, so they've got times of the year in which they're going to actually train, and varies between 10 to 12 weeks down to 6 to 8 weeks, and 4 to 6 weeks for the short course season. So that will have an impact upon the types of training. And in the last column you can see that those have been planned out there. Those are the dominant things that we're going to be training for with this particular training program for this particular schedule. The climate and the season. Coaches will need to have an understanding of what the climates in which they're going to participate in, and have an understanding of how that can impact upon the training and also the performance of the athlete. So whether it's a hot climate or it's a cold climate, those things need to be considered and be reflected in what the training programs that are set out for the players. We can see here the discussion of the different types of phases in the training season. We can see the off season, which is when there's no competition taking place, and would be traditionally a type of a rest period for most athletes. We've got the pre-season, which is leading into the season proper, and that's an important time for elite athletes to prepare themselves. And during the season, throughout the year, there can be variations in what training can be done because of the different climatic conditions that would experience over the course of a year, but also what time and when the training takes place. That will be an impact upon the athletes as well. For many elite athletes, they'll experience acclimatisation. Acclimatisation is a term we would hope that we'd be able to familiar with and understand, where the athlete is going to go and train in the conditions in which they're going to compete. The conditions may have certain aspects about them in terms of the temperature or the humidity. It may be the altitude as well, that some athletes may have the ability to go and train in and acclimatise themselves to become ready for those types of conditions in which they're going to be experienced in the competition. We see that take place in many of our elite athletes at the Olympic level, where they'll go and participate in training camps. We also see it in situations where our cricket teams have trained in Darwin to prepare themselves for particular types of conditions. When carrying out these training programs, it's important that the coach considers the safety aspects and ensures that things like the amount of fluids that are being taken in by the athlete through hydration is considered, as well as things like allowing the athlete to have consideration for the types of clothes that they wear and are provided with. This can have a major impact upon not only the performance but also the health of the athlete. In terms of comparing the recreational and the elite athlete, we're looking at this table in terms of the skills and the performance, the scheduling and the climatic season. For the recreational athlete or the beginner, they have a high level of importance placed on skills. There's not so much emphasis placed on the fitness or the tactics so much, because they need to learn these skills to be able to participate at this level. In terms of their fitness, hopefully a good coach might be able to design some training activities that are going to develop their skills and also their fitness levels. For the elite athlete, however, we can see that there's a big emphasis placed on fitness requirements. These can be the differences between an outstanding performance and an average performance, because many of the athletes at this level have similar skill levels. So the emphasis of fitness can be something that is much more important for the elite athlete. In terms of the scheduling, there's not so much as an importance placed on looking at the different phases of the year. The pre-season isn't going to be as demanding for the recreational athlete as it will be for the elite athlete. During the off-season, also you'll see a difference between what the elite athlete does. The elite athlete will participate in recreational activities to maintain their fitness so that they don't go too far backwards in where they are at and experience reversibility. The pre-season is important because they're able to hopefully gain in fitness and strength and in their skills, which can then be applied into the coming season for the elite athlete. Climate and season, both of them need to be considered for both the elite and the recreational athlete, because they both will have an impact upon not only performance but on health of the athlete.